Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Aviation Lowdown. I'm your host, LO. Last week we talked to our friend Emily, the Dash 8 pilot from Canada, about some of the differences between Canadian flying and US flying, and even flying in Africa, so check that out if you haven't already. Today we have another female interested in aviation, but she's actually from an entirely different hemisphere, that's right, originally from Russia. This is my friend Medina, here on episode 6 of the Aviation Lowdown. Medina, thanks so much for joining me, appreciate it.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
No problem. When I first saw your Instagram, I was really impressed because it seems that you've visited hundreds of countries, or at least a lot of them. And I, immediately was drawn into the fact that you also seem to like aviation. So it's, it's probably a good thing.
That's true.
Just a little bit. So tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in aviation, or where you're from, or what brought you to the U.S., which you're here now?
Well, I'm from Russia, from Moscow. That's the capital. And I'm actually right now in United States in the South going to university, working on my master's degree. And when I don't do it, like I'm not in school, like on vacation, the breaks, I go travel different places.
Wow, good for you. That's amazing. So you're down in the South at SLU, which I believe you said it was in Louisiana. Is that right?
Oh, that's a regional university of southeastern Louisiana, really close to New Orleans, somewhere close to LSU that people might know that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually in New Orleans last year. It's a cool place. So you know a ton about aviation, but are you studying aviation in school or something different?
No, completely not related. I'm actually a personal trainer. I study kinesiology.
Wow, personal trainer. That's amazing. It's a lot of training involved with that. But I have to be honest, I saw a ton of aviation pictures on your Instagram. What's up with that?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I just board the plane and I'm going to flight attendant and it's like, can I go into the cockpit, please? And then they go ask the pilots and the pilots see a girl there like, yeah, come in.
So have you ever been denied to go onto the flight deck or not?
Not when I ask to, but I think some airlines just have policies not to let anyone, not during the flight. That's all, the pictures I took were before flight, so on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think some airlines just have policies like, oh no, we're not opening the door. We're closing as the first passenger comes in. Like we're mysterious creatures. Nobody can see us.
Mysterious creatures. That's probably the best way I could ever hear somebody describe people who work in aviation. So yeah, thanks for that.
But most of the Russian pilots in Russia flying Russian airlines are mysterious creatures. We never see them.
That's funny. But it could also be just the change of times. Like I remember being a kid and everything was so open. They're like, oh, come on up when you first walk in. Of course, I was a kid. Do you think that it's changed over time?
Well, actually, when I was a kid, I felt like they were easier on this. Maybe because I was a kid and they just let kids in. But we had one accident when the kid was at the controls and the plane crashed. So maybe that's kind of contributed to this.
Right,
and it was a long time ago, so I'm not quite sure what was the details about that.
Yeah, I kind of remember hearing about that, probably from Air Crash Investigations, or one of those shows I've watched a whole bunch of, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners right now know what flight that was in terms of the details of the flight numbers and stuff. But to get back into some of the travel stuff, because I'm really fascinated by this, you've definitely traveled internationally a ton. And I'm just kind of curious, especially towards most of my listeners who are in the U.S., how does it differ flying from country to country? Do you have any notable experiences that are, just something that you remember?
Oh, well, it's very interesting because you can talk about different experiences at different places. Like, let's say, flying in Russia, flying in Europe, flying in the U.S., flying somewhere like in Asia. It's all different. And you'll be surprised how much it's different. It's crazy.
Yeah. Before we even started recording, you were telling me some basics, like the differences between the airports of different countries. What's the biggest difference of the U.S. airports here?
I don't like the security here. It's just too much. You have to take everything off.
Yeah, take your shoes, take your belt off.
Take your shoes off. Nobody takes their shoes off everywhere else. In Russia, you don't even have to take your laptop out. It's really chill.
Right. It's come on in. Come on in, it's not a big deal.
I mean, they're checking, they're watching it. It's just not some stupid stuff take your damn flip-flops off.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of people probably coming to the U.S. who don't even think about that. They're probably like, what are you talking about, taking my shoes off? But it's such a part of our culture now with airports, I don't even think about
the
it.
shoes taking.
Yeah, exactly. I was in St. Lucia last year, and Yeah, it was the same feeling. It was opposite for me. I felt, really, I don't have to take my shoes off? Because, you're practically ready to get naked at the check-ins at these airports at TSA. So it was kind of nice to not have to do that, in a way. But
Yeah.
I've also thought about other things, just the regulations related to airlines. For example, smoking. I've always wondered, could you smoke in Russia on airplanes?
No. We have really high standards of safety. Smoking's not allowed. All that. Like I think everywhere is not allowed. What I know, it's kind of funny, is that some airlines in Northern Africa actually let their pilots smoke.
Really? Well, that's interesting. Cool.
Yeah, because it was one time some of our friends were flying and they land and they go out of the plane, like past the cockpit, and they smell like tobacco. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then they found out, actually, yeah, some of these pilots allowed to smoke. I don't remember the airline, and I don't want to tell the airline anyway.
Yeah, it's just crazy how, like, smoking used to be such a big part of society. Now it's like, nobody.
Yeah.
So the longest flight you've ever been on, okay, time-wise and distance.
Time-wise is actually a funny story. Distance-wise, maybe Los Angeles, Moscow.
That's a long flight.
It's insanely long. It's almost 13 hours.
13 hours, wow.
Yeah, and you know how it goes, like when you fly to, like, from Europe to US, which is like westbound, it takes you much longer than if you fly back.
Yep, that's a big thing.
So if you fly from Moscow to Los Angeles, it's probably like 13 hours. When you fly back, it's like 12.
Yeah.
Depends on the wind too.
And I'd have to look at the map. I know for the guys flying over the North Pole, sometimes it's a little bit confusing to look at that flight path. Like, for example, Chicago to Japan or something like that. You might
it goes up and it comes down.
Right. But I guess if you have a globe in front of you, it makes a little more sense. Yeah. But
about my longest flight is actually a really funny story, because we were once flying from Germany to Miami, and it was Airbus A380, and it was snowing in Germany, so we just like kind of got taxi back and then get de-iced and then ready to go, and then they stopped. They're like, okay, we'll close the airport now, it's too heavy of a snowstorm. Waiting a couple hours, then okay, let's de-ice again. And 380 is a pretty big ass plane, so it takes almost an hour to de-ice. It was crazy how long it took.
That A380, I've always wanted to go into one of those planes, and they recently, I guess, discontinued them, or at least had plans to cancel some of that program. And you've been on them, so what's your experience with it? You like it?
It's big.
It's big. Yeah, that's what they say.
It takes a long time to de-ice. So we were just like still on the ground, and then couple other hours and a couple others. And at some point they tell like, okay, so our crew is kind of running out of time, because, they have some limits on time. And Miami takes 10 hours from Germany, which is a long way. Yep. And we were on the ground for 7 hours already.
7 hours in Germany on the plane.
In the plane, on the ground, get de-iced all over again. Imagine how much money they spend on de-icing.
Absolutely. That sucks. That happens in the U.S. too. Yeah. On our domestic flights now and then, it does happen. My brother was actually on a flight last year, was canceled. They ran out of de-icing fluid.
Oh, yeah.
So that definitely is rough, but it happens.
So we're 7 hours on the ground, and then finally there were like a silence, and they say the captain is about to give his decision, and like entire plane is silent, and then he's like, I'm going to Miami. and everyone's like, yes. So we took off, and that was the first time ever I saw the whole plane, like 2 floors of the 380 clapping on the takeoff. It
was like deafeningly loud. It probably was a huge,
so loud.
Rock concert.
No, for real. So we took off and we flew 10 hours. It was 17 hours in the airplane.
Wow.
And one day. Well, I guess pilots just want to go to Miami,
Yeah, you got Will Smith going on there, By the way, speaking of Miami, I'm going to be in Florida, although it's in Lakeland, Florida. This is for Sun and Fun, the annual fly-in and the air show. It's going to be the first week of April down there with my friends Banyan Pilot Shop. If you guys listen, can make it on over. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be beautiful, crazy planes, and everything aviation. So it's going to be a great time. So you're in Louisiana now, but have you ever lived in other places in the U.S. or not?
Yeah, I lived in Florida, in Tampa, for like about a year or something. Before I actually went to school, I was playing tennis there.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
By the way, I'm a tennis player.
That's wild. So, okay, I actually should have asked you that, because there's a ton of your pictures that have you playing tennis. So, and it even says here in your bio, tennis, aviation, SLU. So, that's really cool. Did you have a scholarship? Is that how you got over to the U.S.?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how I got here.
Wow, that's actually really cool. So, All right, you didn't tell me that you're a famous tennis star. We got to tell me these
Well, I
things.
used to be. Then I was a college tennis star, and now I don't know.
And now you're just one of the many Instagram aviators out there, trying to
Yeah,
trying to build their
nerd.
following. No, but that's really, really cool. So how does that work? I mean, pardon the dumb question, but how do they find you and get you a scholarship?
You mean like scholarship thing?
Yeah, how does that actually translate to you coming
Oh
over
yeah,
here?
yeah. Like what they do with athletics, coaches they just look around for people for their teams, and I guess U.S. doesn't have enough tennis players,
Right.
so a lot of schools they go and recruit people from other places,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they get all the international squad
Right.
and good
Yeah.
level of tennis in the places like Louisiana.
Yeah.
People just don't play tennis here. Like not really so popular. Not like Florida. Florida is like tennis state.
Yeah, tennis and golf, anything outdoors, they love it in Florida. But here in New York, you can really only do it like half the year, it gets so cold.
Yeah, but you guys have US Open, huh?
Yeah, we do over in Flushing Meadows in Queens, but world famous.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually never been, but I know a whole bunch of people who have been there, and they say it's really, really worth it, and it's super cool. So, have you ever been over
It's
there?
fun.
You've been there?
I've been there outside of the actual tournament. I just like visited the facility
Yeah.
when we were in New York.
Yep, in New York. That's like right down the road from me, that place.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I've been to Long Island.
Oh, really? What part? That's
Yeah,
cool.
4.5 years ago. Actually, like we stayed somewhere close to the airport and then like overnight there.
Which one, JFK or the Islip?
We came to JFK, drove down to. Is that Long Island Airport?
Yeah, MacArthur?
ISP.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
MacArthur.
So we drove down there overnight and then took off to Tampa
Yeah.
next day. So
you
yeah,
truly
officially
have.
I've been to, but I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
yet.
well, come back sometime. Come in the summer. That's what we're known for, not this frigid winter. But so shifting gears here, do you have any plans to? I know you used to do some flight training. So do you have any plans to ever become a quote unquote professional pilot, or is that something that's not really on the radar, so to speak?
Whew. Well, if I'm gonna do same career change as this girl did before me, the Canadian one, I guess so. Well, that would be awesome. I mean, I love like aviation. If I could fly, it would be so great.
Absolutely. You should. And it's really kind of interesting to me, the cultural differences in how people see pilots. But, you being from Russia, knowing so much about aviation, which we'll get into in just a second. But what is it like in Russia? Like, if you're a pilot, are you as cool as in the U.S.? Like, is that a thing?
I mean, it's really cool. Like, if you're a pilot in Russia, you're like, wow, a cool boy, But also, the kind of interesting thing we have is we don't have many women in aviation at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's like probably 1% or even less. I don't know how many girl
Yeah,
pilots.
we really don't either. I just that I think in the past few years, I was really sort of taken back and impressed by how many people were women in aviation, and I've always tried to sort of network with these people too, because, well, first of all, we sell clothes that they like, but second of all, it's just a great community, and people really look to that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, the more different you can make it, the better it is, and that's a really underrepresented niche, and there's people out there that can do it. So you follow on ATC memes, so you follow us, I guess, online. And how did you get involved with that? Well, I don't know.
Of course.
So did you have a favorite meme or any particular thing that you remember as being your favorite from the page?
I really like those relatable stuff, like, tag somebody who would literally say this or do that, and I tag people sometimes in it for real, or send it to my instructor and say, hey, that's you.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that. People say they tag their instructors or their professors or teachers and stuff like that. It's good to have that relationship, but I guess sometimes we could also get in trouble if we share things. For example, somebody sent me, this just happened last night, somebody sent me a picture of the University of North Dakota's main webpage that was quote-unquote hacked, even though it was fake. It wasn't really hacked, but so many people freaked out. That, they freaked out so badly that University of North Dakota actually made a real statement saying, no, it's fake.
Oh, wow.
So I guess sometimes it works both ways. Like people, they take it way too seriously.
People do it everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, we had the one with Embry-Riddle recently. Actually, that wasn't us. Somebody else, this Aviation News Daily or something. I forget the name of the page, but I shouldn't because it's absolutely hilarious. But whoever wrote that said that NASA was donating a space shuttle to Embry-Riddle, and people thought it was serious. Yeah, and it made like the
I thought that was serious.
Yeah, everyone thought it was serious. I was like, what the hell? So Daytona Beach newspaper, actually, the local newspaper, not even the campus one, but the local newspaper actually made a statement in, an article that's like, yeah, that's not true. Whoops.
That's so funny.
I know.
Do you ever do any memes with like music relation? I know you play some music.
I do, yeah. I've been doing that since I was a little kid, and I love music. It's like my biggest passion in life, but I really have never done any satire, like, memes or comedy with it, no.
Because I remember one post you did like with some music, and then that's what people actually recognize, the theme from Top Gun.
Yeah, the Top Gun theme. I remember that there. That was
cool. That was cool.
Yeah, that was the guitar video. I had basically like this Axe FX2. It's a new guitar processor I had used, and I was trying to mess around with some different sounds. I thought, this would be kind of cool, Steely Dan and the Top Gun theme. But, people really recognize it, and they're like, hey, that's kind of cool,
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, I guess I was taken back by how many people recognize that. It's just cool.
I like that too. Yeah. That's what I remember, like particular post.
I mean, I should incorporate more of that. It's just something expressive. And to be honest, my real passion has always been music. I mean, that's really what I've always done. My brother is a professional musician. So,
cool.
Yeah, he goes by the name Rare Bear. He's a producer, and he's done almost everything I think you could think of in music. But, he's hugely inspiring. But we've always been really fond of music, and growing up we were in bands together, and my brother's like my best friend, so if he's listening, Mark, shout out to him, by the way. But yeah, so I appreciate that, and hopefully we can keep that building up. I have some partners I run an ATC meetings with. We get along great. Yeah. And I just think that in the future, I'd like to incorporate more products to try and get more people involved in the aviation memes community. ATC memes, really. I call it aviation memes.
ATC memes.
Yeah. But
that's your second name.
That's my second name. ATC memes, my second name.
You're the guy from ATC memes.
Yeah, I am. But I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Sometimes it's pretty cool, but other times, like when I walk through an airport, somebody can recognize me, and then you're like, I hope this is not bad. Like what if what if some Allegiant or Spirit Airlines pilot recognizes me?
Oh, maybe you'll have those Embry-Riddle glasses. Like, oh my God, is our hero right here?
I'm gonna actually visit Embry-Riddle, I think. Perhaps with some well-known pilot. I think we're actually kind of talking with doing this, and I've been flirting with that idea for over a year and a half now to go visit Embry-Riddle. I really should do it, but
I actually played Embry-Riddle in tennis once.
Really? Did you guys win?
Well, I think it was individual, and I don't remember. Well, I definitely won because they're like Division 2, but I didn't know Embry-Riddle was like aeronautical university at the moment. I was like, who are these guys? Well, they were girls, but I was like, what school is that? Like, seriously, that was my first impression.
You should be like, well, I was losing, but then a plane went overhead and they completely
and we were playing in Pensacola, and the airport is right next to the tennis courts in that country club, and I guess the girls were just like, you surf, and they just stuck like watching the plane. Yeah,
it was a Navy Pensacola over there and everything else. They have a lot of fighter jets coming down, and it's funny because a lot of those stereotypes are somewhat true, and I'm friends with people who go to Riddle. Like, I knock on all these schools. We make fun of everybody here. It's not in distaste. I'm not trying to cause any trouble. I just think it's really kind of funny to reveal some of the hypocrisy and just some of the general cliches. But I remember visiting my friend John, and he was down at Embry-Riddle, and they turned their hallway into a runway. And at that point, I knew, I think this is a pretty serious school for people who are into aviation. You know what I mean?
Oh, that was fun. I would do that too if I had the whole way here.
For sure. By the way, I saw here in my notes to thank you for being so nice. Every live broadcast, you always show up at. So.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, like any time of the day, too, by the way. You're always just logging in for that. Are you going to be at Sun and Fun, by the way? I meant to ask you that a little earlier when I mentioned it.
Not really, because I'm in school. I kind of have to be there, even though we have a Mardi Gras next week. Do you know that?
That's right. I do. Yeah, I was actually down there last year for a wedding at the very end of Mardi Gras. I went down with a bunch of friends, and it was insanity down there.
Oh,
yeah, my first time. Yep, first time down there for that.
It's the best part.
Yeah, it was off the wall.
Best time of the year, definitely. People go crazy.
You know those hand grenade drinks?
I had those, yeah.
Yeah, I had way too many of them. Well, if I'm ever in New Orleans, we'll definitely have to get a hand grenade drink. That's for sure.
Definitely. Best drink ever.
So, like, I gotta be real for a second. I used to be kind of wild as a kid, but I definitely saw more boobs that week than I ever have in my entire life.
I've never seen one.
Like, I'm not even kidding.
Find them?
everywhere. Are you
No,
kidding?
seriously, I've been to Bourbon Street like at night on a Saturday, and I haven't seen
I don't
one.
know. You must maybe just don't remember because let me tell you, you can get a little hazy over there and forget things pretty easily. But no, you just gotta like buy those beads, I guess, and just throw them off the balcony, and people catch them, and I guess that's how it works. At least.
Well, I catch them anyway. I don't have to flash.
Well, so I mean, wait, but isn't that how it works? I thought you were supposed to flash if you catch the
Well,
beads.
you're supposed to, and some people probably too drunk do it, but not really. Like I haven't seen like anyone guys do it. Oh my
Yeah.
god! I said, especially when they're fat and they're like, "Oh, look at that." I was like, "No way."
That's
No.
why I did it. I wanted to show my
I'm not
fatness.
throwing you my beads.
I'm not showing you my beads. I think you just found the name of this podcast episode, as it was. But anyway, we can shift gears.
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit.
actually, our podcast is going in the way like more Louisiana thing than
Yeah. Now let's talk Russia,
the
now,
Russian
right?
thing. Yeah, let's do a
Okay.
Russian part.
So one of the most fascinating things about you is, the fact that you're from Russia, and I am fascinated by the country and the culture and the history, and also your accent is amazing. I was joking that you should make it really, really severe, but not to suppress it, I guess.
I don't suppress it. That's my normal way of talking. But if you want me to talk like a real Russian, I can do it. But it's more like I'm trying to fake it more than I'm actually like talking.
Yeah. When you talk to air traffic control, when you learn how to fly, you should totally do that accent.
Oh my god, it's already like they're having trouble understanding. Well, actually, I have trouble understanding them. I have like a radius, like
You do?
struggle now.
I think you sound fine. I mean, believe me. I live close to New York City, and here in Long Island, people talk like really fast, and you don't know what they're saying, and they talk like this, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. So when I first moved here, it was because I'm actually from upstate. It was sort of a culture shock. People's accents, and they talk so fast. I'm like, whoa, But no, I can follow you fine. You sound great.
But radius, oh my god, when I pick up flight following, it's just like, what do I say? Do I have to repeat that? Why do I have to say with you? No, and then, all that little things.
So English is a tough language as it is, right? I mean,
it's not. English is
bad?
easy.
So I've heard English, learning it as a second or whatever language is tougher than your first. But of course, how would you know what your first language is like? So
Yeah, well, my English is probably my third language because I also speak German, and I learned German before.
Well, that's amazing. I only know two languages: English and memes.
In English, and
Sarcasm.
well, I guess aviation language, like talking on the radios, is kind of.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. People talk about, American 123 descend and maintain 17,000, the Burbank altimeter. You're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
People hear that first time. Okay, I can get that,
That is a language.
It is. It's a way of talking, and there's probably going to be a whole separate podcast just on phraseology, like top phraseology errors. See, I wanted to have this podcast incorporate everything in aviation. That's why I'm sort of taking it a little slow, because we can't hit everything in the first. We've only been doing this for a month, so.
I think you should start doing like episode 2 with the same people and kind of get more information.
Oh, there's so much. Like that Captain Roger Victor episode, that was almost 2 hours. I cut it up quite a bit. There was a lot of stuff.
You cut it? Oh.
Yeah, there was some stuff I cut out because I just felt it was too long. But I think that we're going to have these people back, and I want to incorporate more video. And
Oh, definitely. I want to hear them again and see like what, like what difference happening. I don't think anyone in aviation will be like, oh, nothing changed. It's always different.
So let's talk a little bit about your aviation story. First of all, your preference. Do you have a favorite airline? I'm dying to know.
That's a tough question.
It is one.
Because I like our airlines just because I have a direct flight. They have direct flight from JFK to Moscow, and I love that because you don't have to go anywhere else. But then I like so in Russia we have Aeroflot. Then I like Alitalia. I flew Oman Air. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yep, I have. Don't know much about them, but I definitely heard of them.
Oh, light chop airline.
Oh, Delta? Yeah.
Delta. Delta is probably the only one I'm flying. Well, I fly American sometimes. I don't fly U.S. Airways or United at all for some reason. Maybe their ticket price or something.
Could be. Yep.
But Delta is nice, and I have a lot of story with Delta as well.
Yep. Good stories?
Then, yes and no. No, because they got delay us once for 20 hours, but then they refunded me, so it was okay. Yeah. No, it was a terrible story though. Imagine snow in Louisiana.
Yeah, it sounds pretty bad.
it's bad. And well, that was
People
quite an
can't handle
experience.
snow here. You get 1 inch of snow here, and people freak out.
Oh
in
no,
New York.
we have maybe one truck with de-icing in MSY. That's all. And
But-
Delta was just like they boarded us in the plane going to JFK. We're like in the plane, and then the flight attendant, after like 3 hours in the plane, is saying like, "Well, the captain left the plane." I'm like, "Well, I guess we're not going."
There's
So
no
they kick
captain.
us out and say like we're delayed for 20 hours, and I was like, "Well, shit,"
Wow.
because I missed my flight from JFK to Moscow, and I had to go like next day. Almost slept at the airport, and the airport is small. Like there's nowhere to go. So,
Right.
well, I was lucky to find like a hotel room.
Well, that worked out then.
Yeah, well, I had to write like a big ass essay how mortally damaged I was, because I was like, they didn't refund us. Like they said, it's the weather. I'm like, it's not. You have one de-icing truck. Why US Airways, like United is using it, but Delta is not? Well, then they refund me, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, I guess ultimately it worked out then, which is good for you. But speaking of Russia, you told me I should visit sometime.
Definitely.
What city should I or other people listening visit?
Well, first of all, of course, you go to Moscow because it's a big city and it has like 4 airports that you can
Right.
come in.
Yep.
Then you want to go to St. Petersburg, and actually a lot of people, they would say, "Hey, I want to go to St. Petersburg first," and they mention Moscow, and I'm like, "Well, you're gonna go to Moscow anyway because it's the place you fly to."
Right.
Then Russia is so big, you can literally go everywhere, like to almost to Japan.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. It's like
I've
half
never
the
been
globe.
that far away, and it literally takes you the same amount of time to fly to city of Vladivostok, which is close to Japan. It's like
Right.
9-hour flight.
Yep.
Then
That's the
it takes you
coastal, right?
to New York.
Yeah. That's insane. You know,
It's regional
yeah. So it's like
regional flight, 9 hours.
from like I don't know, somewhere up in Maine, Bangor to like San Diego is nowhere near the distance of flying those edges of your country. So
The country is huge, and
Really
you
big.
take 2 hours from Moscow to go south to Sochi, where they had Olympic Games.
yep.
And takes you about an hour to go up north to St. Petersburg.
I mean, it's just,
Another
it's,
few.
it's so mind-boggling. I mean, here I am sitting, I'm laughing because it's like, you know, we're trying to understand people in the world and we're trying to get to know people. And I've always said this is so much fun for me to get to know people, but just telling me that it's like you never will be able to see everything. And I guess that realization is just kind of
Yeah.
inspiring in a way. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I got to make my way out there and say hi to all you people.
That's true. Well, I think I travel a lot, but when you use one of those websites when you can see the countries, like highlight them
Yep.
and see where you've been, I probably cover like 15% of the world, which is like not a lot.
Well, it's not, a lot, but it's huge though. And you know, as compared to just sitting at home, I mean, 15% of the globe is a lot. So
Yeah, well, I calculated I've visited like 58 countries.
58. Wow. I have not been to 58 countries. I think I've only been to Canada. I actually went to Spain once when I was younger. That was kind of cool. I was out there for 2 weeks. So I went to Madrid,
Spain is
Barcelona.
fun.
Barcelona, yeah, really fun city.
Yeah, I've
Beautiful
been there.
architecture, a lot of history. Madrid was kind of crazy. I remember like there was just a lot of shenanigans at night. We were in some sort of hostel or something in the third floor, and I remember we would cheer when the cab drivers went through red lights, and like it was like clockwork. They would just keep driving through red lights. We're like, what the
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, all right. So, if I visit Russia or anyone interested in aviation visits Russia, what can they expect over there?
Oh my God! If you're an aviation nerd and you go to Russia, your mind is going to be blown when you see our planes.
Yeah.
Because we have, I have actually a lot of information about that.
Yeah.
Like where to see them and what type of planes you can see. Because if you're a plane spotter,
Right.
that's where you want to go.
So a plane spot, like, so there's certain types of aircraft you can only see, maybe like certain types of day or airports or places around the country, and you're sort of a nerd in that respect, and you know where to look. That's pretty good.
Yeah, because like we have 4 airports, and one of these. So let's say we have one airport. It's called Sheremetyevo. It's where you fly from New York to Moscow.
Right.
Then we have Domodedovo.
Yep.
Doesn't have U.S. flights, but it has literally like 10 airplanes, old airplanes, just on the airport, just like sitting, chilling there, old airplanes. And when you go in that airport, you fly somewhere, you can just like taxi by them and take a look. Then we have Vnukovo, which is mostly like regional kind of style. And then we have Zhukovsky, which just started their passenger commercial activity, but it's a research
Ah,
like aeronautical research place. They have the longest runway in Russia and Europe, and like the third longest runway in the
so they
world.
do like stuff like flight testing there and operations testing
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that.
They tested our space shuttle there.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. That's got to be a lot of
And
fun.
now they still have that Soviet Concorde, the Tupolev 144, parked. And they also held like a biggest air show in Russia once in 2 years.
The Tupolev 144 is like one of the coolest looking planes. I would love to have been on the Concorde or something.
I've seen two. I've been inside of these two.
That's amazing. But
Yeah, the Russian one, like Soviet one, and the Concorde in actually New York. What was the name of that museum? Intrepid?
the Intrepid? Is that what it was?
Intrepid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yep, that's cool. I've been by it. I've never been inside that thing, so I have to do it. There's a lot of stuff I haven't done. I mean, we have some cool museums out here on Long Island, actually. The Cradle of Aviation, right down the road here. Bethpage. That's really amazing. But yeah, there's so many things here. The Smithsonian's like my dream to visit that place too. So, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, I hope to travel more, especially with this page, because this thing's growing fast. So maybe I'll be invited.
Do it.
I've been invited to be in Ireland actually recently. Somebody asked me if I wanted to take a trip to
cool.
Ireland and visit Irish Control, but I have too much stuff going on.
Irish Control.
Irish Control, yeah. Sounds kind of
Yeah.
scary. Irish Control.
I mean, Irish Control, all they do is just drink beer
Sounds like a good place. I'll be right there.
24/7. Shannon,
Yep.
they have an airport there, and that's it.
So Russia's well known for having some of the best vodka in the world. How true is that?
It's pretty true.
Okay, so while we're spotting these planes in Moscow, we'll drink some of the finest Russian vodka we can find.
Yeah, it's a vodka, play balalaika, and have a pet beer like next to you.
Not gonna lie, that sounds like an amazing time.
That's-
So, yeah, let's plan it.
I don't drink vodka because it's not really like a girl thing. It's like a man thing. So the
Right.
men, they drink vodka with the beer.
Yeah.
Typical Russian
So is that
stuff.
so? If you were a woman drinking the vodka and the beer, would you be considered to be sort of unusual?
Yeah, I'm not for alcohol. I'm not a big fan of it because probably I can handle it. That I have to drink a lot to actually get some effect.
Yeah.
But women usually don't drink much. They drink wine, like soft, sweet stuff.
Right.
But men, like typical, stereotypic Russian men, they will go for vodka like
Yeah.
once a week at least.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's always good. So, how has the aviation world changed in Moscow and Russia as a whole? Has it evolved over the years?
If you look at it 10 years ago, like different city. Like Moscow changed a lot. They built so much for the World Cup actually, like last year. Renovated, and also with flying, like for example, you might be wondering, can you still fly those old Soviet planes? Do you think you can?
I don't know. I would say maybe if you're lucky, you could.
No,
You can't?
it's too late. They all of them are down now. Literally, like a couple years ago, you still could on some airlines, very like rare,
Right.
occasionally. 10 years ago, I was flying regionally, and most of them were those like old Tupolev 154 and that kind of stuff. But now that's it.
They've
like
all been replaced. Yeah.
they're all replaced with the newer. Actually, Aeroflot has like the youngest aviation park of all of them.
Very modern.
We have very new airplanes, and we're actually producing some new airplanes now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They're developing. They're building, like, it's called MS-21. They're just like testing it, so getting certifications now.
Wow, never heard.
Then
MS-21.
MS-21, Google it.
Google.
Then we also have a Superjet 100. It's like a smaller regional plane.
Yep.
But that's about it at the moment. And all of the other stuff, like Illusion 96, it's a wide body airplane.
Yep.
Nobody's using it for commercial. I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
They might maybe like literally like one or two planes, but no. I flew that one in 2011 last time. That's probably the last time I've ever flew anything that is Russian,
Right.
like, or Soviet, or like old stuff.
Old stuff. Yeah, I love the old stuff, especially the old Soviet airliners. Like some of those from the 60s are so cool, and they're just such awesome looking planes. Like the Tupolev 154 is one of my favorites. It looks like someone took a 727, but they just completely reimagined it as something actually kind of sexy, you know? But so across the globe, like Russian or American, like what's your favorite plane? Do you have one?
Well, I'm a big fan of Dreamliner because it's a beautiful
It's got a
airplane,
cool
and Boeing Max. I'm like a Boeing girl, you know. Airbus
I'm a
is fine,
Boeing girl. That should be a sticker.
but Boeing, yeah. From the Russian airplanes, I've never flew the modern one, the Superjet. No, I like Illusion because it's big.
Right.
I would say like I like planes because that one is big. It has 4 engines. But, it's a funny plane inside because if you think of a wide body airplane, it has 2 aisles and like overhead bins are in the middle and on the sides normally.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, 96 has literally like no middle overhead bins.
So did you run out of room for your overheads or your carry-on?
Yeah, you kind of have to cramp your stuff in the side overhead bins because there's not I don't know who designed that, but that's a fact.
Yeah.
The same goes for Illusion 86, which is an older model, and I flew that one when I was 2 years old.
Maybe they got their experience or their inspiration, rather, from some of the low-cost carriers here in the U.S. They're trying to save legroom or baggage room.
They did it before mainstream.
It's like the most punk rock thing I ever heard. It's like Russia. They were charging you for your bags way before it was cool.
Yeah, well, you know what we did before it was cool? We did a landing on the river before Sally did it.
Oh, that's right. The Tupolev story. I remember that.
Like in the 1960s, we landed a plane in the Neva River, which is in St. Petersburg.
Someone sent me that story on ATC Memes, and they said, you guys should really make a movie about this one and have it like Sully Part 2. But I'm like, they did it first. Was that a military plane or is that an airline?
No, it was an actual airline. I don't know what it was because it was way back in the day, but it was Tupolev. I think it's 124.
Yeah, I think you're
so
right.
Like the old one. Mm-hmm. And they literally did amazing job landing on the river, like avoiding all the bridges. And well, it sunk eventually, but the people were okay.
Yeah, they got out. I remember reading it was like the landing gear. They had a problem with the landing gear. That's what happened.
Yeah, they tried to open and like poke it with a stick.
Yeah.
I
mean, this is that's true human ingenuity right there, Trying to make it work. I like that.
Another cool story we have with like landing emergency was once with that airline that flew this old Tupolev 154 in somewhere in Siberia, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was early in the morning, I suppose, and all the electricity just went down.
Really?
All the everything. So your electric pump is not working, and you have like some fuel left to make the landing somewhere, and you can't communicate, like nothing's working. And that's a kind of problem of those old airplanes because they just fail sometimes. And so the guys were flying it, and they saw some abandoned runway somewhere in the woods. And they were like, okay, we're landing here because we have fuel maybe for half an hour. And in Russia, you don't have an airport like every other mile. Like in the U.S., you have it everywhere.
Really spaced out.
So they were like, okay, we're landing here. And they had no information, no idea, nothing about what the hell is this like strip? What is it? In the woods.
Yeah.
And there was one guy who was taking care of this strip. He was like cleaning it, and I'm not sure if it had lights, but anyway, so they couldn't land it in the first time, and that's a big ass airplane. Like, it's actually really heavy. It's probably one of the heaviest 3-engine T-tail airplane ever. Mm-hmm. It has very heavy landing gear. It has like 3 pairs of wheels on the main gear, so it kind of could like land on any rough or soft field, a passenger airplane. Like those, your modern Boeings cannot do that.
Right.
So they start landing the airplane, and then of course they run like out of the runway, but somehow the crew did an amazing job in landing the airplane, so they overrun it a little bit into the trees. Mm-hmm. Now everyone survived, but they didn't even injure themselves, so it was fine.
Yeah.
But imagine yourself like you stuck in Siberia in the woods.
You'd be like, what the hell's going on? That's when you reach for the vodka.
Yeah. And people just went picking up mushrooms. Very common pastime in Russia. You can actually find it on the Wikipedia.
Yeah.
It says, people just went like chilling, waiting for them to be rescued.
Mm-hmm. Just keeping the spirits up. That's really inspiring, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of like represents the Russian spirit. Like,
sure, right.
No matter what happens, you'll always like find a good time.
Yeah. Making the best of a bad situation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then these people, they got rescued. They got like to their destination. Some of them took train after that. And then this airplane was restored and took off of the same abandoned runway and was in service again. Like, imagine this.
Wow, from the actual crash scene, they had restored it? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, it didn't crash. It just made emergency landing into the woods.
They kind of just pulled it out and cleaned it up, and they're like, all right.
They just cleaned it up a little, and then it took off and continued service. And now it doesn't fly anymore because all the old Soviet airplanes are down on the ground.
That's really inspiring.
Oh, some of them still flying. Some you might do like a flight for flight, what they call it. You assemble a group and they just like, I guess, give you a ride around the area in Moscow in an old airplane. They maintain it pretty well.
Right.
You could like touch it, you know. If you're an airplane nerd, you'll be like, oh my god, this is a dream of like my life.
I think that would be really kind of cool if I went to Russia and got a flight and an old Soviet plane. And
those are fun. Those called whistles.
Whistles?
Because their engines make those weird sound like they're whistling.
Yeah, the old
like actually Tupolev 134 is nicknamed as Whistle.
The Whistle. I'm looking at. Oh yeah, that plane. Because the engines are really low bypass, I believe, so it's noisy to begin with.
Really loud, really
Super
noisy.
Loud, yeah.
That's why they're banned from like everywhere.
Yeah.
But I flew this one as a kid, and actually that's probably one of my first memories because I was taken into the cockpit as a kid. Like, imagine how much excitement is this.
Oh yeah.
And that airplane has glass panels in its nose, like
actual, glass in the nose.
Like you can get into its nose and just like look down.
Wow.
In the earth.
So you're in a bubble.
Yeah, exactly. I was put there as a kid, and I thought like maybe they would just like show it to me and get me back in the like main cabin. They let me stay the whole flight in that little nose, like a glass nose of this airplane, until very like final.
Yeah, for those of you who are wondering what this looks like, because I looked it up, a TU-134, she is absolutely correct. The nose is glass. It's like the whole thing is one gigantic window, so you're able to see essentially everything. That is wild. I wish I could do that.
Well, I was in that nose as a kid.
That is so cool.
Flying on actual flight, and then they just got me like into the seat for like actual landing because, well, safety. But
when you're a kid, you're so not afraid of that either. You know, it's like now I'd be like, holy shit,
No, if you're a kid, you're like, oh my god, I'm flying like a real, like, you know, like a bird. You can see all these little buildings down there, like rivers, trees. That's amazing.
Incredible. Yeah, I think that's about all the time we have for today, unfortunately. But I really appreciate
actually, I have to go back to work.
This has been awesome. I have a lot of good stuff here, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you, Medina. And
me too,
I look forward
Dave.
to having you on my live broadcast more and more and learning more about your part of the world and your culture and your flying experience. And it's nice to take a break from sort of the nerdiness of some of the aviation world now and then and just talk to somebody who's a fan. So I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun. Any final words to the listeners?
I just think we have to do more episodes when I can actually speak like a real Russian. That will be another story.
Yeah.
And I would like for your followers go follow me and see maybe they find something they like traveling.
Absolutely.
Slide into my DMs.
This girl is just blatantly inviting you to slide into her DMs. Her words, not
We
mine.
can talk about airplanes anytime.
Yeah. And she's really, really cool. I'm not even kidding. I've talked to her for a while. So, and just tell all my followers, what is your Instagram handle? So if they're typing it in right now, they'll find you.
It's Madinka Claire C.
Okay.
I don't know where that nickname comes from, but that's
I'm going to
pronounce it, I guess.
Put that in the description of the episode. I always do that.
Sure.
But all right, Medina, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And
thank you for talking.
Clear skies to you, and good luck with tennis and school and everything else. And I'll be talking to you real shortly. So thanks again.
Awesome. Bye.
Well, that just about wraps it up for episode 6 of the Aviation Lowdown. As always, you want to send me some love, it's lo@aviationlowdown.com. For those of you who are curious, yes, I will be at Sun and Fun this year. It's April 2nd through the 7th. I'll be there the 3rd through the 7th with my good friends Banyan Pilot Shop out of Fort Lauderdale. We'll be over there. It's in Lakeland, Florida. That's where the Sun and Fun event is. You guys don't want to miss it, so if you're going to be in that area, seriously, stop by. It's going to be a great time. As always, thanks for listening, guys. We really appreciate the support and all the fan mail. Join us next time. You never know who we might have. Bye-bye.